Good morning, America. How are ya? Monday Morning Rail. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I'm at the world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. Today is Monday, and you know what we do on Monday? You guessed it. We do show and tell, and show and tell is always brought to you by Jelsma Graphics, the people that make all the railroad embroidery clothing since 1985, almost 40 years. So if you need any embroidery clothing with railroad logos, look us up on Jelsma.com. That's Jelsma on the internet, and shop till your heart's content. And show and tell is going to start right now. Show and tell starts right now. This Monday morning rail, we are going to give you a quick history, a little of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, and then what made up the Jacksonville Terminal, a lot of the membership. And first of all, before we really get started, I want to say thank you for all the viewers that watch us week after week. We are normally getting 12,000 to 15, as high as 17,000 views on Facebook. And so we just thank you, and we thank you for watching, and we thank you for all the nice comments. But the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum was founded by Rodney Butcher, and he is our president, and it was basically started in the year 2006, and they were at a little building on the south side of the river that was owned by the city, and it was a very small little building that the city gave Rodney to really try to preserve the history of the Jacksonville Terminal. And what actually led up to this was a railroad club here in Jacksonville called the Gateway Railroad Club, and it was originally founded in the mid-60s, around 1965-66. One of the founding fathers of it was a guy named Jack Wagner. He was a professional photographer here in Jacksonville, took pictures of the early rail facilities all over, and he has been an asset to this club. He built a roundhouse that we have on our layout here. He scratch built from his photographs. And so Jack, we had Mel Hazen, he was a member, and then Larry Brennan. A lot of people remember Larry Brennan. He was the guy that had a white shirt and a bow tie and a conductor's hat. He was at many train shows. But these were the founding guys that started the Gateway Club. And they have, and we have, just in our museum here, you can see right here, this the Gateway Club was a fictitious railroad, and it was called the Cowford and Northern. And Jacksonville, right at the downtown, was a very narrow section of the St. John's, and the local Indians called it the Cowford Crossing, where they would move cattle back and forth across the St. John's, and it was called Cowford Crossing. And this fictitious train that we have here, this was salvaged from the Gateway Club, was called the Gateway Northern, and it was a fictitious railroad that ran from Jacksonville up to Asheville, North Carolina. And we were able to preserve this particular train in memory of the Gateway Club. I was a member of the Gateway Club back in the early 70s. 1971, I moved to Jacksonville, was transferred with my company, and I joined the Railroad Club, and they were in the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, they were in the Jacksonville Terminal on the second floor. And remember that very distinctly, 50-some years ago. They were there for quite a few years, and then when Amtrak took over in '71, they started closing down the terminal. They actually closed the terminal in 1974, and then the Gateway had to move to a storage facility that the coastline had just to the west, still down there on Bay Street, and they operated out of an old warehouse, and they were at that warehouse for a few years until vandals kind of got in and destroyed it. And so then the Gateway Club had to move to a place called 5 Points across the river, and a section of Jacksonville called 5 Points. And now it's a very artsy area. They were above a drugstore, and they were there for quite a few years. And then around 2000, they lost their lease. And this is so typical of model railroad clubs. They'll be in a place for years, and then they'll lose their lease, or a new person will buy the building, and then they raise the rent and they have to move, and that's what happened. And in 2000 they had to leave. They put everything in storage, and then in 2006 Rodney Butcher, who was a member of the Gateway Club and spent 44 years as a FEC engineer, wanted to preserve the history of railroading, and started the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum. The Gateway Club was a fictitious club that was just fictitious, and this was an example, was the Calford and Northern, where Rodney, his goal was to preserve the history of railroading in Jacksonville. And so the foundation of this was to preserve the history of the railroading in North Florida. And so today we model about a 50-mile radius of Jacksonville. And in 2011, Rodney lost his lease. The city gave him a little spot right down on the river, and he had about a fourth of the size of what we have now. That was just of the terminal, and he moved it on his own property, the beautiful shed that we have here, and so for the last 15 years we've been at this location, and we're right now at about 98% complete. And what you see week after week are scenes of Jacksonville, what we have, and we want to preserve the history. And that's our whole mission, is to preserve the history of railroading. And every Friday we have a running session that we take from the actual schedules of that particular date. Right now we're running in the 1953 era, and we will run these passenger trains and freight trains. And so it has been just a great pleasure to come and run trains on an accurate basis. And it's just such a thrill. And the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, a lot of the members out of the Gateway Club came and joined Rodney at the museum here, and we just have fantastic phototype modelers, and we're really blessed, and you see that in the sceneries that we see here. And I just feel extremely blessed that I could come and on Mondays and run, and on Fridays and just run trains, and you just go back in time. And once again, it's just an absolute pleasure. And that's the way it is at the world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, where the sun always shines and running trains is an absolute pleasure, and peace and harmony.